My husband, Tom, often joked that I had concrete in my veins. It wasn't far from the truth. Our comfortable life, the one built on Tom's solid career as an architect and my own steady work in urban planning, was always underpinned by a deep, almost instinctual understanding of real estate. It wasn't just a profession for me, it was a legacy. My family had been in local property development for 3 generations, long before the current boom turned every second person into an investor. I knew the market not from spreadsheets and algorithms, but from the granular level, the shifting demographics of a neighborhood, the subtle hum of a developing district, the quiet potential of an overlooked parcel of land. This unique insight, honed since childhood over countless dinner table conversations and site visits, was a gift. We weren't rich, but we were financially secure, diligent savers, and had a comfortable nest egg growing for our future. Our routine was predictable, comforting. Weekends were spent hiking the nearby trails, tending our small garden, or visiting my parents. Family was a cornerstone. That included Bethany, Tom's younger sister. Bethany. She was a whirlwind of dazzling smiles and breathless excitement, always buzzing with the next big idea. Where I was methodical, she was impulsive. Where I preferred quiet competence, she thrived on flash and presentation. She was charming, undeniably so, and had a way of making you feel like you were the only one in the room, truly sharing in her grand visions. My husband, Tom, adored his sister, often overlooking her flightiness with a gentle smile. I, on the other hand, held a healthy skepticism, softened by affection. We were family, after all. The opportunity arrived one crisp autumn evening, over a bottle of fine Italian red at our house. Bethany, a self-proclaimed boutique property investor, who mostly flipped small apartments on the outskirts of town, had been unusually secretive for weeks. Now, she practically vibrated with suppressed excitement. "Anna, Tom," she began, leaning forward, her eyes gleaming. "I found it. The one. The absolute perfect investment. We're talking life-changing returns." She pulled out a sleek tablet, swiping through glossy photos of a dilapidated commercial building in a historically significant, but currently stagnant, part of the city. She spoke of unforeseen zoning changes, imminent infrastructure projects, and exclusive insider access to this particular piece of land. She painted a picture of a hidden gem, perfectly poised for exponential growth, thanks to her unparalleled connections within the city council and investment banks. Her presentation was slick, filled with impressive projections and a confident delivery that made even Tom, usually cautious, lean in. "My contacts at the city," she declared, "they've practically guaranteed the rezoning. This area is about to explode. And I've secured this property for a fraction of its future value." She named a figure, a sum that made my eyebrows rise. "But I need a partner. A co-investor to help secure the financing for the initial acquisition and redevelopment. And I immediately thought of you, Anna. With your family's legacy, your understanding of the market, you're the only one I trust to truly grasp the potential here." She flattered me, appealing to my professional pride, my family heritage. It wasn't a hard sell, not really. The numbers, as she presented them, were almost too good to be true, but her confidence, coupled with the family connection, made them seem plausible. And the property itself, from my knowledge of the area, did have potential, though certainly not the kind of guaranteed meteoric rise Bethany was predicting. Still, the insider angle, the idea of being part of something truly exclusive, was enticing. Tom, ever the optimist when it came to his sister, was immediately captivated. "Think of it, Anna. A real chance to put our savings to work, not just sitting there. And with Bethany's connections, and your eye for detail." We decided to go for it. It wasn't a small sum. It was our life savings, painstakingly accumulated over years of diligent saving and smart, but cautious, investments. We liquidated some stocks, pulled money from our retirement accounts. Bethany assured us the risk was minimal, the returns astronomical. "Just a few months, maybe a year, then we cash out," she'd promised, flashing that dazzling smile. I signed the papers, a convoluted stack of legal jargon that Bethany assured me was standard, feeling a surge of excitement. It was a leap of faith, yes, but a calculated one, based on family trust and what I believed was a unique, albeit risky, opportunity. The first few months passed smoothly, almost too smoothly. Bethany would send glossy updates, photos of the building's exterior, news of minor permits being approved. She even sent us a small, initial return payment, a gesture of good faith, she said, from some preliminary leasing activity. It was less than promised, but she dismissed it as early phase adjustments. Then, the delays started. Minor bureaucratic holdups, she'd explain, her voice breezy over the phone. Just need a bit more patience. The promised redevelopment schedule began to stretch, then buckle. The updates became less frequent, more vague. My calls to her went straight to voicemail, sometimes for days. My initial excitement curdled into a growing knot of unease. "Are you sure about this, Ben?" Tom asked one evening, seeing the worry etched on my face. "It feels like a lot of excuses." "I'm trying to get a meeting with her," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Something isn't right." My family's insights, that deep, intuitive sense of the market, began to prickle. The details Bethany was providing simply didn't add up with the pace of development in that area. Zoning changes, especially ones that could triple a property's value, were highly publicized, meticulously debated. Yet, my own casual inquiries among old family contacts yielded no confirmation of Bethany's guaranteed rezoning. The horrifying discovery wasn't a single moment, but a creeping dread that intensified with every unanswered question. I started digging, not through Bethany's glossy reports, but through public records, through my old contacts in the city planning department, through quiet conversations with people whose families had been in local real estate longer than mine. What I found chilled me to the bone. The property Bethany had supposedly secured, for a fraction of its future value, was indeed purchased, but not entirely by our joint investment. A significant portion of the initial capital had gone directly into a shell company, registered to a P.O. box, with no clear link to the property itself. The rezoning Bethany had guaranteed was a distant rumor, years away from being confirmed, if ever. The exclusive insider access was a fabrication. The preliminary leasing activity was a fiction, the small return payment a paltry crumb meant to keep us quiet. It was a scheme. A calculated, fraudulent scheme to steal our life savings. And the architect of it was Bethany, Tom's sister, my sister-in-law, a member of our own family. The shock of being conned, of being so profoundly betrayed by someone I trusted, someone who shared our family name, was a physical blow. It was a violation not just of our financial security, but of the very bonds of kinship. My heart ached, not just for the lost money, but for the shattering of innocence, the corrosive realization that blood was not thicker than greed. I remember the confrontation. It was at a neutral coffee shop, the kind of brightly lit, bustling place where you could feel anonymous. Bethany sat across from me, sipping her latte, radiating her usual confident aura. I laid out the evidence, calmly, meticulously, like building a legal case. The shell company details, the lack of rezoning applications, the forged documents relating to her exclusive access. Her face, usually so expressive, went blank. Then, a flicker of fear. "Anna, what are you talking about?" "This is crazy," she began, attempting to dismiss it with a wave of her hand. "It's just a slow market. You're overthinking." "I'm not overthinking, Bethany," I said, my voice steady, though my hands trembled beneath the table. "I've seen the public records. I've talked to people. The money. Our life savings. Where is it?" Her eyes narrowed, the charm melting away, replaced by a cold, hard defiance. "You have no idea what you're talking about. This is a legitimate investment. You're just trying to cause trouble. You're paranoid. You always were." "It's fraud, Bethany," I stated, the word cutting through the air. "And I'm going to expose you." Her response was swift, venomous. "You wouldn't dare. You're talking about family, Anna. You think Tom would ever forgive you? You think his parents would stand for this? You'll destroy everything." It was a threat, a desperate, manipulative attempt to leverage family loyalty against me. But the bonds had already been severed by her greed. I looked at her, truly saw her, not as a sister-in-law, but as a con artist, a predator in plain sight. And in that moment, my quiet resolve solidified. The grim meetings with the lawyer began the following week. It was a painful, emotionally draining process. Laying out the evidence, explaining the betrayal, discussing the cold, hard realities of legal action against family. My lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Ms. Davies, was sympathetic but clear. "This won't be easy, Anna. It will be messy. And painful." I simply nodded. The pain was already there. It was etched into every decision, every piece of paper, every realization that our shared future, once so secure, had been gambled away by someone we trusted. But what Bethany didn't realize was that her scheme, built on a foundation of lies and exploitation, was about to crumble. Because I wasn't just an investor, I was an Anna with concrete in her veins, with deep roots in this very real estate community. And those roots would prove far stronger than any of Bethany's carefully constructed deceptions. The initial meetings with Ms. Davies, our lawyer, were difficult, heavy with the weight of betrayal. Each time I recounted Bethany's smooth pitch, the fabricated numbers, the hollow promises, I felt a fresh wave of nausea. Tom, bless his heart, was devastated. His sister. His own blood. He swung between disbelief and a simmering rage, sometimes directed at Bethany, sometimes, unfairly, at himself for having been so easily swayed. But through it all, he stood by me, a quiet strength in the face of the profound personal cost. "We have a strong civil case for fraud, Anna," Ms. Davies confirmed, her voice sharp and decisive. "The paper trail, while convoluted, points to clear intent to defraud. And once we get discovery, we'll likely find more. The problem is, proving criminal intent is a higher bar, and criminal charges are handled by the state, not us." I understood. Civil cases were about getting our money back. Criminal cases were about justice. And I wanted both. But more than that, I wanted the truth to see the light of day. For Bethany to be held accountable, not just financially, but publicly, within the community she had tried to exploit. This is where my family's legacy, the very concrete in my veins, became my greatest weapon. I didn't just know the property market, I knew the people who shaped it. My grandfather, a formidable figure in local development, had built not just buildings, but a reputation for integrity and fairness. My father had continued that legacy. Generations of trust. I began making calls. Not to complain, not to gossip, but to discreetly ask for information, to verify facts, to connect dots that Bethany had tried to obscure. I spoke to retired surveyors who remembered parcels of land my grandfather had developed. I had lunch with zoning officials, ostensibly to catch up, but subtly probing about the supposed, imminent changes Bethany had promised. I met with old-school contractors, whose families had worked alongside mine for decades, asking them about market whispers, about the kind of investment activity Bethany claimed to be engaged in. My family's name opened doors. It didn't guarantee information, but it guaranteed a respectful listening. And as I presented what I had found, the shell companies, the suspicious money transfers, the blatant misrepresentations, I watched a quiet understanding dawn on their faces. There was a collective intake of breath, a silent acknowledgement of the profound violation Bethany had committed against the unspoken rules of our community. This wasn't just about money, it was about trust, about the integrity of the market. "Anna, if what you're saying is true," Mr. Henderson, a respected real estate lawyer who had known my father for years, said, his voice grim. "This could ruin her. Utterly." "She ruined us," I replied, my voice steady. "She stole our life savings." The information I gathered, corroborated and verified by my network, became an unassailable mountain of evidence. It wasn't just circumstantial, it was damning. Shell corporations with no legitimate business. Funds diverted to personal accounts. False promises of rezoning and development approvals that never materialized. Bethany's carefully constructed house of cards began to crumble under the weight of the truth. Ms. Davies was impressed. "This is exceptional, Anna. This level of detail will make our civil case almost impossible to defend against. And it gives the district attorney a clear path for criminal charges." The legal battles began. The civil lawsuit was filed, a cold, clinical document that laid bare Bethany's deception. Bethany, predictably, fought back. She hired an aggressive lawyer, attempting to dismiss our claims as misunderstandings or bad investments on our part. She even tried to paint me as a vengeful sister-in-law, jealous of her success. It was pathetic. But her lawyer was no match for Ms. Davies and the irrefutable evidence I had unearthed. Simultaneously, Ms. Davies shared our evidence with the district attorney's office. What had started as a personal betrayal quickly escalated into a full-blown criminal investigation. The DA's Economic Crimes Unit took the case seriously. Fraud, especially one involving such a significant sum and a seemingly legitimate property deal, was a priority. The news of the investigation began to filter through the local media, quiet at first, then growing louder. The boutique property investor, who was always chasing the next big thing, was now under investigation for grand theft and fraud. The community's reaction was swift and decisive. The property development world is a tight-knit, insular place. Reputation is everything. When the whispers turned to confirmed reports of fraud, the gates closed. Bethany's name, once associated with ambitious projects, became synonymous with scandal. People who had once eagerly taken her calls now found themselves mysteriously unavailable. Loans were called in. Partnerships dissolved. Her professional life, built on an illusion of success and integrity, began to unravel in public. Within Tom's family, the betrayal was a deep wound. His parents, staunchly traditional and proud of their unblemished reputation, were devastated. At first, they tried to mediate, to find a way to protect Bethany, to deny the undeniable. Tom himself struggled, torn between his loyalty to me and his sister. But as the evidence mounted, as the criminal investigation gained momentum, denial became impossible. The breaking point for the family came during a particularly brutal hearing in the civil case. Bethany, arrogant and defiant, tried to lie under oath, to twist the facts. Ms. Davies, armed with my meticulously gathered evidence, systematically dismantled her testimony. It was painful to watch, a public unmasking of someone I had once shared family holidays with. That evening, Tom's father called. His voice was heavy, broken. "Anna," he said, we saw the hearing. There's no denying it. She's done something terrible." He paused, a long, agonizing silence. "She's disowned. We can't have her associated with us. With the family name." It wasn't just a decision, it was a public declaration, understood implicitly within their social and professional circles. Bethany was no longer part of the family. She was cut off, isolated. The public disgrace, the sheer weight of having defrauded family and violated their trust, became her new reality. Tom himself, after a tearful, difficult conversation with his parents, had little choice but to accept it. The family he knew was shattered, forever marked by his sister's greed. For Bethany, the legal battles were becoming a rout. The civil lawsuit was moving towards a summary judgment in our favor, her assets frozen to prevent further evasion. The criminal charges were mounting, the district attorney building a formidable case. Her life, once a carefully curated facade of ambition and success, was publicly crumbling. And I, the easy mark she had tried to exploit, had, with the quiet leverage of my family's reputation, helped expose her. The legal process, though agonizingly slow, was ultimately decisive. Bethany's civil case, riddled with inconsistencies and outright lies, collapsed under the weight of our evidence. The summary judgment ruled overwhelmingly in our favor. The court ordered restitution, freezing what little assets Bethany still had in an attempt to recoup our stolen life savings. It was a victory, a formal acknowledgement of her deceit, but the emotional cost remained immense. The money, even if fully recovered, would never replace the feeling of profound violation. The criminal charges followed swiftly. The district attorney, armed with the comprehensive dossier I had helped assemble, presented a compelling case to the grand jury. Bethany was indicted on multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and wire fraud. The image she had so meticulously crafted, of a savvy, ambitious entrepreneur, was shattered. News reports, once politely ambiguous, now openly detailed the criminal charges against her. Her mugshot splashed across local media. The boutique property investor was now simply the defendant. The professional fallout was immediate and irreversible. As part of the legal proceedings and the investigation by the state licensing board, Bethany's real estate license was provisionally suspended, then, after her eventual conviction, permanently revoked. She would never again legally operate in the property market, the very arena she had tried to exploit. Her career, her life's ambition, was utterly ruined. I never saw her again in a social setting. The disowning by Tom's parents had been a public, unspoken decree, and the wider community enforced it with silent, devastating effectiveness. Friends vanished. Colleagues averted their gazes. I heard snippets, vague rumors through peripheral contacts, that she was struggling, financially destitute, deeply isolated. The once vibrant Bethany, who thrived on attention and admiration, was now relegated to the shadows, a pariah. She had achieved a kind of success, but it was the success of self-destruction. Her greed had burned down not just our savings, but her entire future. For Tom and me, the journey was long and arduous. The financial recovery was partial, slow. We had lost a significant portion of our nest egg, pushing back our retirement plans, forcing us to reevaluate our comfortable future. But the deeper scar was emotional. Trust, once so easily given, was now a precious commodity. The betrayal had not just emptied our bank account, it had tainted the very concept of family. Therapy, for both Tom and me, became crucial. We talked through the anger, the grief, the profound sense of violation. We leaned on each other, on the genuine love that formed the true bedrock of our marriage, a love that had survived this seismic shock. We learned to compartmentalize, to acknowledge the wound without letting it consume us entirely. We talked about Bethany, not with hatred, but with a weary sadness for what she had become, what she had lost. My relationship with the property market, too, subtly shifted. The intuitive understanding, the concrete in my veins, was still there, but it was now tempered by a new caution. I found a quiet satisfaction in leveraging my insights for ethical, community-focused development projects, consulting for smaller, local firms that valued integrity over quick profits. It was a different kind of success, built on trust and genuine contribution, far removed from the flashy, hollow promises Bethany had peddled. I didn't chase the big, risky deals anymore. My passion had been refined by pain, forged in the crucible of betrayal. Years passed. The legal cases concluded. Bethany, I heard, served a reduced sentence due to various factors, but her life outside was effectively over. The memory of the scheme, the betrayal, never entirely faded, but its sharpness dulled. It became a part of our story, a painful lesson learned, a testament to resilience. I often thought about that conversation at the coffee shop, when Bethany had tried to manipulate me with threats of family division. She had thought I would crumble under the weight of that loyalty. She had mistaken my calm demeanor for weakness, my deep roots for naivety. She had thought she had found an easy mark, a means to her own quick enrichment. But she was wrong. Her sister-in-law had convinced her to co-invest in a property. It was a scheme to steal her life savings. I responded calmly, understood. When Bethany realized what I had done, the quiet, methodical process of exposing her deception, leveraging the deep, unwavering trust of a community her greed had tried to exploit, it was already too late. She had destroyed her own life, her career, her family ties, all for a temporary gain. And I, the one she had abandoned to financial ruin and profound emotional betrayal, had not just survived. I had rebuilt. I had found a deeper strength, a clearer purpose, and a renewed faith in the enduring power of true integrity. My life savings were not completely lost, and my peace, finally, was fully restored.